Welcome in to episode 131 of the At the Yard podcast. I'm your host, Lukach. Once again, joined by Vinnie Alfino, Hank LoForte, and Stephen Hardesty. And guys, we're here to talk about the inaugural West Coast Super Sophomore games that took place last week at the University of Oregon and Bushnell University. Basically, what we did is we brought together a bunch of players from Idaho, Utah, PNW, Nevada, Arizona, Hawaii, California. Don't know if I'm missing any there. Arizona. Put them on teams, ran through a workout, played 3 games with each team, and was just an awesome event at some awesome facilities. So just your initial thoughts on the inaugural event.
Yeah, I think it was a good point to see how our Cali guys kind of match up against the whole West Coast, I mean, I think PNW had about 50 guys up there. So it was a lot of kids that we'd never seen before. And you bring, a bunch of Hawaiian guys and then add all the other states. And it's like, oh, we got 200 of some pretty good, the best 2028s we can offer on the West Coast. So, I mean, for me, it was a good experience just to see the talent and, get everyone together in one spot.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like, that was the biggest thing for me is you see these kids from all over different states, and we kind of get locked in our own specific regions that we cover here, and the ability to go like, hey, I really like this guy, and he, there's a kid in Washington or Oregon that's just as good, or I really like this guy and he stood out compared to everybody else that was there.
Yeah, no, I really like that. There was a lot of kids, in California and also other states that were kind of flying under the radar coming into this event and kind of put their name out there. And, I'm excited to talk about some of those guys today, but it was a good experience for these kids, and for them to have an opportunity to play at the University of Oregon is, obviously a great experience in its own right.
Yeah, and, Hank, you mentioned how many players PNW brought. I believe we ended up with 44 or 46 from California.
Mhm.
So really good turnout from California players as well. And we're already getting some feedback about next year with some 2029s, which is exciting. And we were able to lock in some dates there with the University of Oregon and Bushnell for next year. So, this is an event I think that's just going to grow and grow. And I mean, the facilities at Oregon alone make it worth the trip. And
Yeah.
I mean, the kids and the parents were just kind of in awe of the level of facilities, whether it was the soccer field where we did the workout, PK Park where we played a bulk of the games. A lot of those kids took it upon themselves to kind of tour the campus, tour the facilities where they could get in. And, the feedback was just incredible about those facilities.
Yeah, I think all of us as being the baseball guys and dorks that we are, when we walked in that first day, you could kind of see us as a group and our jaws are like, wow, this is different. Like there's some beautiful places down here in SoCal and NorCal, but walking in there, it was like, this is different. This is pretty awesome. And I know for me, it was like, these kids don't have a clue about what they're going to experience for the next 3 days.
I was just in awe of the attention to detail, you
Mhm.
go to some of these spots and it's a lot of eye candy, but it's like, wow, Oregon really took a lot of time to, really get everything right. And I remember just all the ducks flying to the stadium everywhere. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. So there's just a bunch of stuff like that. Like, I remember the on-site dentist was pretty cool too.
Yeah. And I just really like that, the baseball field and football stadium are right next to each other. There's a lot
Yeah.
of college campuses that are spread out. Some don't even have football, but, for a recruit to come and, possibly, tour that campus and see football and baseball right next to each other, like that alone, can get a visit off to a really good start, because it was, like Hardy said, when we were walking up, it was like, this is unreal, seeing that, in firsthand.
Yeah, and before we get too deep into this, just a massive shout out and tip of the cap to Gavin Grant there, the camp director for University of Oregon. Gavin was an absolute rock star for us and took care of everything we needed and then some. And obviously, hat tip to Jack Martyr and Waz and the rest of the staff up there for allowing us to be there. And then, more importantly, throwing out some dates for next year, I think proved to be beneficial for everybody involved. But so again, I touched on it at the top, workout, a few games. We didn't do a team of California players. We didn't do a team of PNW players per se. We mixed kids up, and that was intentional to get kids kind of out of their comfort zone, right? Meet some new players, meet some new kids out of their area, make some new friends. And the vibe in a lot of those dugouts, man, I mean, it took quick, right, guys? I mean,
right.
Where these guys kind of worked out together as a team, and then they went off and did their games together. I mean, the vibe in the dugouts was pretty awesome. It's like these guys had known each other for a really long time.
Kids are getting chirpy, you know, and you can kind of tell like throughout the days, or like some teams had a little more energy than others. But I mean, as a former player, and you guys probably experience it too, it's like, hey, once you get on the field with your boys, like you guys are like best friends from the get-go. So it's like, I mean, it's an easy little mesh for them, and I respect that. And I think it's kind of a universal thing with all of us. But I mean, it was just nice to see the kids gel and have fun. Like, it wasn't just a showcase. It was like, okay, you do your showcase and now it's game time. So let's compete a little bit. And I think the competitiveness brought out the best part for these kids at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, they got a little goofy at times, but I'd rather see them be goofy and a little chirpy and a little overly animated than just sitting there and not paying attention. I thought that was one of the coolest parts is you'd walk in the dugout and these guys are talking to each other and they're like, oh, what high school do you go to? Like, who's in your league? You know, oh, you play for that travel team? Like, yeah, I play for them up here. You know, just that ability to bond. And I think Les said this. He's like, the amount of guys I walked by that were like, hey, man, give me your Twitter, give me your IG. Like, what's your number? Let's stay in contact. Like, I think that's cool. These guys are building bonds beyond just their local area.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really great to see. I remember at the last game at Bushnell, there was, kids from California, talking with kids from Hawaii, talking from kids from PNW, just saying, let's keep in touch. And, that was really good to see because, it can kind of move really fast across 3 days for kids and, for them to make that bond pretty quick and for them to make an effort to want to keep it, beyond this event was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I think the award for loudest and chirpiest team goes to that lime green team. Those guys
they were having some fun
nuts,
for
man.
the last game of the weekend.
Yeah, there was like 3 or 4 dudes that were the ringleader the whole weekend, man. Those shout out to those guys. But yeah, so that was the format of the event itself. So guys, let's jump in and let's start talking about some players here because. We had a ton of guys, like I said, about 46 from California. While we won't talk about all 46, I think we were talking about this internally. I mean, every one of those guys either, got a hit or pitched well enough. We posted a ton of stuff on social media. But like every single guy we brought did something throughout the weekend that was kind of like, oh, okay, that's why you're here, sort of thing. But Vinnie, I'm going to start with you with a third baseman, right-handed pitcher that me, you, and Hardy saw at the Central Cal Summer ID, and 𝐿𝐴𝐿 out of Bishop Alemany. He had a pretty strong weekend. The workout was pretty good from what I saw. It wasn't in all the stations, but his BP was pretty good. I did get a chance to see that, and that carried over into the games.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with Alex, I was looking forward to seeing how that performance at Central Cal Summer ID would, translate into live game. That was kind of the, the hope I had coming in for Alex, and he kind of, checked off all the boxes in game for me. Hopped on the mound, he was up to 85, struck out 5 over 3 innings, had swing and miss with the secondary pitches. And then he came in and had a couple base hits at Bushnell, went opposite field for a double, had a base hit up the middle in the second day at Bushnell. So he kind of just, carried over the strong performance he had back in July at Ventura College and put together a good performance at the West Coast Super Sophomore games. And I really just see 2A upside with him right now. He plays well at third base. You can put him, kind of towards the top of the order. Hits well, line drive swing, and then on the mound, I really see a good future for him. Already up to 85 with a strong 3-pitch mix.
Yeah, the plate discipline was pretty impressive in that final game that we saw. Hardy, I want to say he had 4 ABs in that game. He was the last hitter of the whole event for us, and pulled a fastball down the line for a base hit. But it was pretty impressive performance out of 𝐿𝐴𝐿. And you want to talk about impressive performances, Hank? 𝕐𝐴𝐻𝕠𝕕𝕤, the catcher infielder, switch hitter, he put on a show during BP, and then that carried over into the game. We had him on that first night game there at or one of those first night games at PK Park. That was a very long night, but he was pretty impressive all weekend long for the Team Black there, 𝕐𝐴𝐻𝕠𝕕𝕤.
Yeah, I remember you guys saying how good his BP was. I wasn't able to watch much of it. But yeah, I mean, DJ is another kid. Like, I'd say this 28 class is going to be some valley sleepers, I like to call them. I think they're just those kids in that Central Valley that, haven't really got a chance to be, over or under the radar. And then now it's like, okay, they get some love. And, DJ is one of those kids where he's a switch hitting catcher. He runs a 7.2, which I think that can get shaved down. His EV, I think, was around 93, 94. But he's one of those kids where he's a gamer, too, in which I respect that. And, a lot of kids where sometimes it translates, sometimes it doesn't. DJ, he asks anything you want, he'll do. He could play short. He even pitched this up in Oregon. So, I mean, he's one of those kids where, you follow him. He'll get an invite to the preseason All-State, but I love DJ, and I'm sure you guys love seeing him play too.
Yeah, that was the first time I'd seen him play, and the beauty of this event, the gameplay gives you a real opportunity to kind of evaluate all the stuff you just talked about. And I mean, he checks all the boxes, and I think you're right. I mean, he's athletic enough to where it's easy to see that 7.2 get trimmed down a little bit, maybe around that 7.0, even potentially even below that. But you talked about Central Valley sleepers and Hardy. This guy is a sleeper no more based on the conversations we've all had with people in the industry. Jacob Quintero out of Ridgeview High School in Bakersfield was amongst the I would say 3 best shortstops in the entire event, all of those guys being from California. Quintero, a guy you saw at the Bakersfield Summer ID, and I know that how excited you were when he came out when he registered for this event, and he certainly backed up all the hype that you kind of came into the event with.
Yeah, Jacob, I think we're going to have an argument about whether Bakersfield is NorCal or SoCal when this is all said and done. He's a Valley sleeper or a SoCal shortstop. Haven't decided yet. But he was really good at that Bakersfield ID, and in a smaller group of kids, I think we had 25, 26. It was kind of like, okay, he's really good for a small group. How good is he going to be on a bigger stage? Well, he came up to Oregon, and to quote a line from one of my favorite baseball movies, he announced his presence with authority from the moment he took his first ground ball when I was over fungoing on the defensive station. It was like I hit it, and I wasn't really paying attention to who was up, and then he fields it, and he throws it, and it is an absolute rocket into the first baseman's chest. And I was like, oh, that's Quintero. And now I'm locked in for the next 5 ground balls that I hit him. Every ball's in the chest, and that was just the start to what was going to be a fantastic weekend for him. The thing about him that I love is it's such a natural grace. Like Hank posted a defensive video of him when we got back, and you just watch the actions, and they are so smooth and they're so silky and easy. It's like, God, he does things with such ease. The same in the box. It's like the only thing he doesn't do at a level that you're like, holy moly, this kid's really good is run. I think he was a 7.3 runner at the event, but he's also 6'1", 141 pounds. When he puts 20 to 30 pounds on that frame, he's going to turn over his legs faster, and he's going to get quicker, and it's going to be more explosive. Like, I think we've all had people reach out to us and go, who the heck is this kid, and where did you find him? Jokingly was like, this is because we work hard. Like, we get out there and we go see more players than we can possibly imagine at times, and finding a kid like Jacob makes it all worth it. And I think that kid doesn't quite realize how much he did for himself this weekend and how much he put himself on the map, because it was a fantastic weekend for him. Kicking it over to you, Les. This kid went JFG's with us 2 years ago, or a year ago. I can't remember how long it was, but Big Russ, and he was already highly talented, and he just continues to get better.
Yeah, it's hard to like determine for me where I liked him more, on the mound or at the plate. I mean, he was up to 87 on the mound with a really good breaking ball. But at the plate, like Vinny talked about it in our 28 podcast, I mean, he went off at the state games and was in the running there for the MVP of that. And I mean, he was in the running. If we did an MVP award for this event, he certainly would have been in the running for that too, because he hit baseballs, to all fields. He hit them, on a line. He hit them really hard. But on the mound, up to 87, the slider was really good. The changeup was getting, it shows the progress that you want to see. But Russell continues to get better. But the thing that impresses me most, I think, with him is, you could tell he's taken the physicality part of the game very seriously. He's really improved his body. He has gotten that into much better shape than it was even, a few months ago at the state games. And it's certainly better than it was when we brought him out to the JFGs. This is a guy that's going to make a lot of noise, I think, this season for Damien, both on the mound and at the plate. He's a first baseman, right-handed pitcher with a power bat. I mean, that's the bottom line. And, there's power to the game and everything he does. And I just think that that's going to continue to elevate as he continues to, get bigger and stronger. But I want to go back to 𝐂𝐡𝐞𝐜 really quick, Hardy, if I can. And, I know Hank was hitting fungos pregame to those guys, and he kind of came back. He's like, dude, who's that guy? Right. And you're like, oh, that's 𝐂𝐡𝐞𝐜. And he's like, oh, I got to get video of him. Right. And so it's like, when a guy like Hank, who, played in the middle infield, gets that excited about a kid's actions, just during some pregame fungos, like that tells me at least, like, hey, this kid's got a chance to be pretty damn special. So,
and Hank hunted that for like 3 games. Like he only got he missed him 1 inning, and he looked. He's like, "Oh, when do they come back?" And he's going run. That's the fastest I've ever seen Hank run was when he went to shortstop. He was like a bolt out of his seat. I got to go get video.
Dude, it's not every day you find those types of kids, and it's fun because it's like once you see it, you're like, "Oh, I've seen this before. Like I know where this can go." Yeah, and so then it's like a matter of, all right, what do I tell this kid that I knew later in life that worked for me that he can figure out earlier? You know what I mean? And so if that helps him that little, that's a win. So that's why I get so excited about stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%. Another guy, Vinny, that was pretty damn exciting on the barrel all weekend. A guy that we saw at the OC Summer ID, Jonathan Torres, the left-handed hitting first baseman pitcher. Dude, he was just on the barrel all weekend, man, and he hit some balls that were pretty damn hard all weekend.
Yeah. Torres was just squaring up the baseball left and right, both at Bushnell and at PK Park. Going back to the workout, you saw signs of that to come because he had bat speed up to 82 miles an hour, and then he carries that into live game with a whippy barrel, line drive swing. I believe he had 4 hits across the 3 games. During the West Coast games. And I just really like how effortless the swing is. It's pretty level barrel line drives, but I think just because of the effortlessness, if he can add a little more loft over the next 2 years, you could really see power numbers jump for him just because, like you said, every swing was just on the barrel, on the nose, to the pull side. And I think, he had a double. I think he had 2 doubles in the game, was up to 96 during batting practice, but just competes every AB. It's a really smooth swing. He's balanced in the box, and it didn't matter if it was early in the count, 2 strikes. He was taking his hack and getting a good barrel on the ball. So Torres, I think, is going to continue to improve. And then, we'll go over to you, Hank, a kid out of Redwood High School, played for Team Green, third baseman, and that's Ryder Miller.
Ryder Miller has got a personality on him. I know Hardy is experienced.
I love me some Ryder Miller. He's a good dude.
No, I love Ryder. He's he's one of those, another Valley kid. They're pretty athletic, but I think Ryder long term is going to move to the outfield. Yeah. Just because in the infield he's not bad. He could play third. But I just think he's one of those guys that's got about another inch or 2, maybe 3 in him, just because I saw his dad. His dad's pretty tall. But like I said, it's still raw. It's a 7.5 60, but I think he's kind of in that trajectory of his best friend's 𝐿𝕒𝕚𝕐𝕗. So I think, Wyatt kind of broke out after his sophomore year. So I think Ryder's kind of getting, headed that way. And, it's really good baseball in Visalia. So he actually hits with one of my good buddies. So I know he's in good hands. But, a kid like him, he's got a chance to be really good. I compare him to kind of 𝕬𝕬𝕕, who, well, I'll also be talking about him later in this podcast. But they're very similar and also from the same area. And
he's pretty damn athletic too, Hank. Like
Miller?
Yeah, Miller was pretty athletic. I was really impressed with just his overall athleticism. I'm glad you said that, there's an opportunity potentially down the line for him to be in the outfield, because I think that athleticism will really play up out there. Hardy, a guy that left us all with, just kind of our mouths open every time he came up to the bat, and came really highly recommended from his head coach, Gary Patchett, and that's Tyce Johnson, the shortstop out of Linfield Christian, just put on an absolute show all weekend.
Yeah, if you talk about breakout guys, like Tyce is right up there amongst probably 3 or 4 guys from the state of California, probably the entire event, that really broke out and put himself on a very prominent stage going forward in his career. But I think one of the funnest parts about Tyce was Hank and I, we were sitting there, I think the first and second game, we were alternating taking video of him. And then after he'd hit, we'd sit there and we would slow-mo it and go through it. And you talk about guys that are really athletic and have natural ability, but haven't fully figured it out yet. And that's Tyce. Like, he's really, really good right now, and he still hasn't figured it all out. Like, there is still another gear in like everything that he does that is going to take him to another level. And the kid's so good already. And he showed it to us on his last at bat of the weekend. Like, he finally got into what we talk about with like the best positions you can be as a hitter, when you land, when you rotate, where you are at contact. And I jokingly told Les before his last at bat, I was like, man, if he does this, this, and this, he's going to go from hitting those balls on a line to the outfielders are just in front of him, to where he's going to hit it off. And PK Park had this McDonald's sign in the left center field gap. And I'm like, you hit that ball at the McDonald's sign. Well, next at bat, he comes up and he does it, and he hits a one hopper off the McDonald's sign. And Les looks over at me, and he's just shaking his head like, did he do it? And Hank and I are like, yeah, he did it. So he was so impressive all weekend. And I think this is one of Les's favorite points, and I love it too, is it's not that the kid's such a fantastic player and has so much ability, but he's just a wonderful kid too. Like, the amount of times he came over to us and genuinely said thank you. Like, I love this. Like, this is awesome. I saw him go out. I forgot to mention this about Quintero. I saw both of them go out to Gavin Grant after every game that they played at PK Park and shake his hand and say thank you while Gavin was doing the mound to get ready for the next game. Like, they're not only great baseball players, they are fantastic young men. So I think coming from a big league bloodlines like his dad, Reed, he's got a very, very bright future. Kicking it back over to you, Les, and this is the guy I know we all love. We've seen so much of this kid, and he's so much fun to be around. And like the previous kid, Russ, who was also JFG kid, he keeps getting better. And that's Cooper Cantrell, the catcher.
Yeah, Koopa Loop is like I like to call him. 195 to 20 pop times. I mean, the arm and the catch and throw continues to impress. His ability to block baseballs has really stood out. Looks like he's added some strength to the frame. It's a smaller frame, yeah, but his ability to catch and throw is, I mean, it's on par with anybody in this particular class here in the state of California. But what really impressed me the most is now he is driving the ball to the gaps with authority, right? Whereas, JFG, he'd get the barrel to the ball, and it's just kind of little bloopers over the second baseman or shortstop's head. I mean, now these are line drives into the gaps, extra base hits. I mean, he's getting stronger and stronger every time we see him. We saw him, at the state games where he had a really good performance there, and it just kind of has carried over into this super sophomore games, where I want to say he had four or five hits over the weekend. And even his outs were loud outs. I mean, he hit one to the warning track there in left center field that was caught that I thought was down for sure, for going to be a double at least, if not a triple. He could improve the running a little bit, but, as a catcher, that's not the biggest priority. but his ability behind the plate is on par, like I said, with just about anybody in this class. But I think his ability at the plate is starting to catch up to that, which is, I just felt like, hey, he was strong at state games. He was strong in a scout day that I saw him after the state games, and now here in a 3-game setting with the workout was once again really strong. He's going to be at King in the fall, or he's at King, I should say now, where, I can't imagine that there's a better catcher than him in that program. So he'll be up on varsity, I would assume, where, he's going to get a chance to really show off his abilities, man, because, he's a quality catcher and a guy that's going to, make some noise and make a push for, potentially being on that Future Games roster next year. And a guy who, Vinny, who I think is also going to make a push for that roster, out of Oaks Christian High School, Oliver Curtis, who, we saw at the OC Summer ID, came out, banged there, in just a BP setting. We all three saw him, at Scout Ball in the fall. But his profile just continues to get better and better, particularly at the plate. I think, Hardy, you noticed he's kind of leveled out the swing a little bit more. It's not so much lift, but OD is on the rise, in our view, for sure.
Yeah, Dallas Curtis for me had one of the more balanced, full 3 days at the West Coast Super Sophomore games. He starts with the workout, runs a sub 760 at 696, 88 from the outfield, was upper 90s EV. So, you saw the signs of, what was to come leading into the weekend. And then at Bushnell, he put together a lot of quality at bats, including 2 really hard hit singles, one up the middle, one to left field. And I think, Hardy kind of hit a good note there that the swing's really leveled out for him. And, it wasn't so much of an uppercut swing. It's definitely more of a line drive path now. And I think that's going to, play really well for Dallas Curtis moving forward. And then he also hopped on the mound. He was 81 to 83, got up to 84. Although I think the, long-term profile for him is in the outfield. I think you were able to just see kind of the athleticism that he has on the mound and how that kind of carries over to him on the position player side. But it was just a good 3 days for Oliver, and he kind of solidified himself and proved why he is kind of highly touted out of California.
Yeah, funny kid too. I spent some time with him and a couple other guys on the blue team in the dugout that first night, and just kind of a little shy, but a funny kid. Kind of came out of his shell a little bit. But Hank, back to you with 𝕤𝕤𝕤. You touched on him a little bit earlier, but I mean, this is a big physical kid that has a whole lot of ability presently that is really projectable too.
Yeah, we saw 𝕤𝕤𝕤 at state games, and me and Hardy were actually talking about it, and we're like, well, if you put 𝕤𝕤𝕤 around, juniors and seniors, and he could fit in pretty good, right? But then you put him against kids in his own class, it's like makes you realize, like, hey, this kid's actually really, really good, and I forgot how big the kid was, he's like 6'2", 6'3", but he runs a 6'7". So it's like, I'm thinking more of that, definitely long-term corner, center right fielder, but every time we've seen him, he's hit the ball hard in the game.
Yeah.
And then also his analytics on the, the workout, they're pretty good, but the trend I'm seeing right now is the Valley Boys. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, you'll hear about this kid again. I know he just transferred to Kingsburg, so he was at Memorial last year. So He will be playing with the Herc with Jensen. So yeah, and then let's kick it over to Hardy. This kid, I would say probably pound for pound might be the strongest kid at the event.
Yeah.
Let's talk about 𝐂𝐻𝕠𝕕𝕤.
Yeah, I think KJ, he's a lot like Walter, where when you see him around older kids, it's like, oh, that's a pretty well-built kid. And then you see him around kids his own age, and you're like, that kid's very physical. KJ is a athlete. He is a varsity level soccer player at Oaks Christian. I was like, hey man, what position do you play again? Like you midfielders? Like, no, I'm a center back. It's like that's right. But you look at his lower half and his upper body, he is well put together. And then you watch him run, and he runs like a soccer player. There's this bounce on his toes where he's a catcher now, but you can see he's trying to make a real strong effort in the outfield to get good out there because he knows, like, hey, I'm probably not catching this year because they have this kid named Carson Sheffer there that's going to make it hard for me to get on the field there. So he's running around. He made a nice sliding play out in right field. He's getting more comfortable. The bigger thing with KJ is he'd been to a pair of IDs, and we knew he could crush a baseball in BP. He's been 100 plus EV every event he's been to, including this one. He launches balls. He's got bat speed. He's got strength. It was how's he going to play in a game? Because I've never had a chance to see him play because obviously played on the lower levels with Carson being there. So he comes up his first at bat, and it's an absolute missile to right field for a line drive out. Then he had his only for the bats that I saw was the only one that wasn't a very good at bat where he got to a deep count. He got locked up by a breaking ball, and it was kind of nice to see that because then he got a third one, and you got a chance to see him adapt off of that, and he jumped on a pitch and drove it to dead center field, burned the center fielder, one hops it off the wall at night at PK Park. And we had this conversation with Martyr later on. And it's like, it's not easy to hit a ball with carry at PK at night. And he did it with some ease, launched another ball to left field. He just missed hitting it out. So that ability to translate what he does in BP into the game, I think KJ's got a chance to be a very impactful bat. And especially if he can stick in the outfield and it takes a little bit of that wear and tear off of his body and lets his athleticism show up, he's a lot like 𝕤𝕤𝕤, where I think he ran a 6.96 or something like that in the 60. You put him in center field, let him run around, and that's a dynamic power speed profile out there. Um, Pushing it back to you, Les, and this is a guy that he's got a tough hill to climb because he's got a really good older brother that he's trying to live up to. And his dad swears to me that he's going to be just as good, if not better, than his older brother. And he's starting to show that, and that's Colton Dunwoody.
Yeah, Woody is a guy. This was the first time I got to see him throw in a game situation. And man, to say I was impressed would be an understatement because he was up to 85, lived 83, 85. The slider is what really impressed me at 75, 74, 75. He was landing both of those for strikes, and it's just a clean arm. It's repeatable. I think the thing that really stood out to me is from the time we saw him in the Central Cal ID to now, just the added physicality, right? He's a good 6'1", 6'2" already, the broad shoulders, and he's added some significant strength to the frame already with, a lot of room left still to add more. But, that translates at the plate. He was at 99 exit velos during BP. He played a bunch of third base. He might be able to handle that position in the future. But, like you said, I think on the mound is where he's going to end up because the velocity continues to tick up from what we saw at the ID to now what we see in game, and the ability to land those pitches for strikes consistently. He went 3 innings. I think he gave up 1 hit. He had about 4 punch outs in that, no walks, a lot of weak contact. It's just a guy who, depending on how things shake out at Royal this year, may get some varsity time. I don't know how much he'll get on the bump, but he may get some varsity time either at third base or at first base, depending on what coaches decide to do there with the roster. But, Dunwoody, like you said, it's never easy to kind of live up to the hype of your older brother. But I think he's blazing his own trail already. And this weekend certainly, helped him do that, to kind of establish himself versus, just being the little brother. Vinny, I'm going to kick it over to you with a really athletic shortstop out of NorCal who, for me, was the first time I got to see him, in person in terms of a gameplay situation. And, Dallas Tucker out of the Oakland area was, all of that and then some just from a projection standpoint.
Yeah, going to the event right after defense, I talked to Hank a little bit about Dallas, before gameplay started, and it was kind of a guy just to keep an eye on. And I think you nailed it in terms of projection wise. You can really see him starting to take off and what he's end up becoming later down the line. He was a sub 760, ran a 693, low 90s EV, but it's just kind of the profile that's gonna continue to rise for Dallas. It's a left-handed hitter. I think he kind of knows that he can, with his profile, he needs to take the ball the other way, can hit the ball on the ground and kind of use his athleticism and speed to get on base. And I think only 5'9", 155, but there's already some fill in the upper half for me that I like with Dallas that I think is going to continue to fill out over time. And you see the hand speed at 23.4 miles an hour. I think that that's going to play for him to be able to hit line drives the other way long term. And he's a guy that I think is going to progress over the next 2 years because there's a lot of kids that are more physical right now, but he's a kid that's going to continue to get better. And I just like the profile makeup for Dallas, long term.
Yeah, he was pretty impressive, defensively as well, particularly at second base where he made a lot of plays throughout the weekend. And Hank, another guy that really impressed both behind the plate and at the plate. Connor Cleary, the catcher first baseman, had himself quite the weekend as well.
Yeah, Connor probably had the shortest drive he's had of all our events this year. So, Connor's gotten better every time we've seen him. I think we all recently saw him down at state games. We were talking about him there. But, it's those kids that just live kind of in the middle of nowhere and they get that opportunity and, they pounce on it. Connor's one of those kids to where, he does the field off the work and then you see it on field and it's like, all right, this kid definitely has gotten better. And, I think he's one of those guys where I think this summer is going to be big for him on the summer circuit. And, with just refining up all of his skills, I think, he's going to be loud up there. And, I think he's got a shot to be one of the top catchers in the whole state. But, and then another thing too is a lot of these kids are just beginning their sophomore year, so it's like where they're at now compared to a year and a half, 2 years could be a lot different. So I just think a lot of these kids could be trending a lot more upward when we see them again.
Yeah, it's a lot like that 28 rankings top podcast we had, right, where we said, guys, there's time, right? So these guys have a lot of time to improve on those skill sets, but. Cleary, like you said, every time he has come to an event, he has certainly maximized that opportunity, which is what I think is the most impressive thing about him. And Hardy, a guy I know you're really familiar with, another catcher. I mean, it seems like we had some of the best catchers at this entire event. Quinn Melton, the catch and throw is pretty solid, but that left-handed bat has a chance to really be something special.
Yeah, I love Quinn, and I was really excited that he came up to this because, like a lot of the guys on the Central Coast area, I always love when you guys get a chance to see them and not just see them in a workout setting, but actually get to see them play in a game. And Quinn's got just ridiculous left-handed power, and this was fun for me is he was in BP, and I'm over videoing, and he just absolutely obliterated a baseball. I think it wound up going 100.4. 396 feet. It hit, they have a sign out in right center field. I think it says 32 MLB players on it, and it hit the 32 MLB players sign. Well, after BP, Hank and Vinny come down and they're like, hey, who's 18 on line green? I was like, that's Quinn. They're like, he hit that ball and our entire station stopped and turned around and watched his next four swings because it was so loud. And I was like, that is Quinn. Like, that's the thing that Quinn always has in his back pocket is I've been going to San Marcos High School for 20 years and he's had a ball farther there as a freshman than I've seen in 20 plus years. But for me with Quinn, what I'm starting to see, and we talked about the development side, is he's becoming a more well-rounded player. It's not just impact left-handed bat, which is going to carry him all the way through, but the kid really wants to catch. And last year he did not get to catch at San Marcos, and he just continues to put in the work back there as a receiver, a blocker. The arm path is cleaned up. I think at the summer ID in July, he was like a 2.2. This time he's a 1.99. It's more on the base. And then you're starting to see the hit tool. It's not just I'm going to swing out my butt and try to hit a ball 700 feet. I think Vinny over at Bushnell, he had 3 or 4 knocks. A couple of them went the other way. He's using the whole field, and that ability to just continue get better on a well-rounded profile with ridiculous left-handed power. It's going to be a very bright future for Quinn. And this is another kid who I think got a fantastic future ahead of him and is probably slightly under the radar, but made a loud statement to his potential as CJ Gamrat, the left-hander out of Harvard Westlake.
Yeah, another guy that we had seen at that Central California Summer ID that we invited up to this event, and boy, did he not disappoint. Getting the ball there first in that last game on Friday night. A little chilly there at PK Park as the sun went down, and he goes out, he strikes out 4 of the first 5 guys he faces in the first inning. Comes back out, handles a PFP cleanly. He's got a little moxie to him. He's got a little FU in him, which is what I liked. And, he wasn't taking it from anybody up to 85. The curveball was pretty good, but the changeup I thought was one of the best changeups we saw. Really kill spin down to, under 1,300 on the spin rate there with that. And the slider, was pretty sharp as well. And it's just it's a 4-pitch mix from the left side. He works quick. He knows what he wants to do. He attacks hitters both in and out, mixed eye levels really well. And, it's another guy that we talked about on the 28 Rankings podcast. But when he came out there, like I said, it was the last game of the night, start a 7:30 or 8:30 start there at PK Park. And, it was chilly, man. And he was going after guys. And, it got to the point where in like the middle of his second inning, he ended up going 3. Like it looked like the hitters just didn't want to be in the box against him, right? It was really uncomfortable at bats. That's how much he was kind of coming after these guys. And, he's got some bigger-ish feet, if you will, which kind of, allows you to project the frame a little bit more, standing now about 5'10", 5'11". If he can get to about 6'2", or even bigger than that, it just adds to kind of the dream on him because he's going to increase velocity. And, with Joe Gunts as his pitching coach there at Harvard Westlake, he's just going to continue to get better. This is a guy, I think it was Hardy, I said it to you when he faced another guy, another SoCal kid. I'm like, hey, this could be a CIF Division II playoff matchup, right? 6th inning matchup, right? A lefty.
I think it was the Miracosta infielder. I think Grayson Thomas.
Are
we looking at the 2027 CIF Southern Section Division I playoffs here?
Right. This could be a playoff matchup here with, late in the game where, they bring in CJ to kind of, face the lefty here. And it's just that sort of stuff is exciting, right? When you see that stuff in person and you fast forward 6 months into May and, we hopefully get to see that as well. But, CJ had a really, really good weekend and Vinny, a guy that, another JFG guy who was a 2-way guy for us out there, hopped on the mound for us, late in his first game here. Aiden Vargas out of Palos Verdes High School, the left-handed hitting first baseman, had a pretty strong weekend at the plate as well.
Yeah, Vargas did have a strong showing at the plate. At Bushnell, I believe he only had 1 hit until the last game, but he was just taking a lot of competitive at-bats, taking good swings, working good counts, and I just feel like his timing was a little bit off, at least at Bushnell in the first, 3 or 4 at-bats that he had. But then his last at-bat, he went oppo double off the left center wall. And you could just see kind of, that's more of the results that you expect because the swing is really good with Aiden. I like the leg kick that he has. It's balanced when he puts the weight to the back leg. And I think it was more just a timing thing for him, at least in the at-bats that I saw over at Bushnell. But then, the double he had off the wall was one of the better swings of the day in the final game of the event over at Bushnell. And it was funny, he got the double and he ended up scoring on the next batter. And then he ran over to me and was like, I got to catch a flight and I need to leave right now. And I was like, okay, you got your double and you can leave. So, I like that I got to know him a little bit throughout the weekend and, 2-way talent, fundamental at first base, had a couple, good picks, saving some throws from the left side. So, A well-balanced weekend, ended on a good note for Aiden.
Yeah, great kid. He was on our flight there into
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah.
just a funny kid. And speaking of funny kids, Hank, 𝕤𝕤𝕤𝕕, it's not funny what he does to baseballs, but really good personality kid.
Yeah, Euler, the kid hits, right? We say the phrase hitters hit. He's one of those kids to where, during the BP portion, he was hitting balls line to line, at PK Park, hitting them out. And then one of the most impressive at-bats I saw Euler ran was, I think he saw a total of like 10 pitches, and he spoiled like 5 or 6 of these things until he got one up, hits a double to right center, and it was just like, I don't really see that a lot. Is kids knowing how to spoil pitches, and like it pisses the pitcher off. Like this guy's being annoying at the plate, like he's hitting everything. Like that to me is being a hitter. So I applaud him for that. Some people are going to look at it and be like, oh, he runs a 7.3 and he throws 81. Like at the end of the day, if he's a gamer and the ball's caught and he can hit, that's all I really care about. But like I said earlier, he's still at 28. It's his fall of his sophomore year, and I expect that arm is going to get stronger. He's going to get faster. I know the kid works really hard, but like if you want to hit, then I would suggest doing stuff like Euler in the cage, because whatever he's doing is paying off the field, and
Right.
He's not the biggest kid either, and I think that plays a part in having a chip on his shoulder, is knowing like, hey, I'm not the 6'4", 200-pound dude, but if you step on the mound, I'm going to give you a little problem. And I think that's how he plays. And he goes to Granite Bay, which is a really good school up here. And sometimes analytics don't teach heart, and I think he has some of that. So I was impressed with him the whole weekend. Another guy, I think that was pretty impressive. Hardy, he's probably $145 is Wyatt Richards.
I think you're fudging on that one.
Yeah, you might be adding some.
He's another kid to where it's like a lot of these kids they're very like small still, and so you see the projection, and it's like I think he was up to 87. But I'll pass him to you so you can talk about him.
Yeah, Wyatt's a fun one. I knew his high school coach has now left, took a job at another school, but last year he called me in the middle of the spring season and was just like, hey, I'm bringing this kid up to varsity. You need to come see him. And I was like, well, how come he wasn't on varsity? He's like, I wanted to give him time to get comfortable with high school baseball before I brought him up. And once he brought him up, Wyatt went right into the middle of everything for St. Bonaventure. That helped him get a league championship, get into the CIF Southern Section playoffs. The thing with Wyatt is, like you said, he throws 87. He's 89 from the outfield. He's determined to get 90 from the outfield. He's a 6'9", 7'0" runner. He can really go get the baseball in center field. It's a good operation on the mound. Like, it is silky smooth. It's athletic. It's easy. The arm speed is natural. The question for him is going to be like, how much better does he get when he gets stronger? Because I think 145 is pushing it for him. He's probably a little closer to 135 than 145, but he does all of this stuff at a really high level, and he doesn't even have his strength yet. Like, how good is he going to be when he gets there? And Hank, you and I were talking about this, and I'm like, I love his swing. I love his bat to ball. He knows what he's doing in the box. He's just kind of always a tick late on everything. And we were having the discussion, well, is it a timing thing or is it a strength thing? And I was like, you know what? I think you got a really good point. I think it's more of a strength thing that he just hasn't gained the weight to get to his bat speed, to get to his hand speed, to rotate at the level that he can. That maybe that ball he's 3 inches late on now as a sophomore, well, maybe now he's 2 inches early on it, and he turns it and drives it into the left center field gap for a double. So I think in the long run with Wyatt, like, he's got all of this ability as a pitcher, as a center fielder, as a hitter. It's going to be the bat and the strength gains on how well those go for him that's going to determine where he winds up. But wherever he winds up, he's going to be a fantastic player. I'm super high on him, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he continues to develop. And once he gets that strength, because if he looks like 𝕤𝕤𝕤𝕗 and one day and he's 185 pounds, he might be hitting balls as far as 𝕤𝕤𝕤𝕗 is. He just doesn't have that extra 50 pounds that Zach has right now. That those two guys are very similar in their stature. Les, you picked a good one here, and I think this is the guy that we all love going back to JFG's last year. Another baby brother that's starting to make his own name and not be known as the baby brother. That's Kylan Gravely out of Santa Margarita.
Yeah, man, Gravely really impressed me, I think, with just his physicality, right? I mean, from what we saw at JFG's, he had a little bit of an injury last spring, caused him to miss some time, but he's back fully healthy. And, it's just a really intriguing profile, 6 foot, outfielder. He ran a 6.94, and I think that's a little bit slow for him. Uber athletic in the outfield. He's got an 85 outfield arm, 80-mile-an-hour bat speed. I mean, his BP was really impressive. Was able to catch the tail end of it, and then kind of going back and watching it on video. Like, he's catching everything out front. He's using, he's splitting the gaps. He's driving balls now with more authority than he was in the past, and I think that's attributed to the added strength that he's put on. But it's just a really intriguing profile. He hopped on the mound. I think he was, hovering around 80 miles an hour on the mound. I don't think his future is particularly on the mound, but it's a bat kind of top of the order profile, guy that can get on base, run really well, a guy that can drive balls into the gaps. And he continues to get bigger, which is what's intriguing. I mean, he's grown about 2.5, 3 inches since we had him at JFG's, a year ago, 18 months ago now. Again, the frame continues to get bigger. Obviously the younger brother of Warren Gravely, headed to Notre Dame, another former Future Games guy. But Kylan, I think, is putting himself in a position where he's going to really compete for time on varsity at Santa Margarita. They lost a lot of guys to graduation. I think he's going to continue to position himself to, if not earn a starting spot, kind of maybe potentially even be the 4th outfielder on varsity, because the bat has really improved, and the added strength has really allowed him to take those hard hit balls to the outfield and turn them into some, really hard hit line drives to the outfield, and then where he can use his speed on the bases. And, he's really instinctive, can steal a bag, can, goes first to third, will score from second. So it's just a really intriguing profile. And Vinny, speaking of intriguing profiles, a guy that, I feel like we've talked about ad nauseum here on internally and on podcasts. Baby Chef did nothing to dissuade any of us of his current ranking and his current standing in our eyes.
Yeah, Baby Chef. This was actually my first time seeing him in person, because I haven't been able to see him at any point being down here in San Diego. But, Chef kind of, checked off all the boxes that I've seen on video and we've talked about on podcasts internally. And that was just the metrics speaking very loudly at, the workout portion. Ran a 6.9. He's mid-80s across the diamond. With accuracy, it's right at the first baseman's chest every time, it seems like. It's really fluid glove to hand transfers. Bat speed is at 23 miles an hour. And, although the glove is ahead of the bat right now, because he's a very good shortstop, the bat is starting to really catch up for Chef, and you're starting to see him really make impact on both sides of the ball. And he made a play at Bushnell. He was playing second base, but there was a slow roller, up the middle towards the second base bag. He fields it on the run, throws a bullet to first base, and although the runner beat it, it just showed the athleticism that he has up the middle as a middle infielder that translates over to the shortstop side. And at the plate, he had a base hit to left field, and then he smoked a line drive to left center that was caught right at the wall. So you're just really seeing him starting to make impact on both sides. And then he hopped on the mound and was up to 83. And, he scuffled a little bit, but you could just see, kind of like Dallas Curtis, his teammate at Oaks Christian, just the athleticism that they have on the mound and how it really translates, to the offensive side of the ball, and for them playing, for Chef playing shortstop. So, for right reason, he's one of the highest, ranked kids in this state and in the class. And, he showed his talent very well at the West Coast Super Softs.
Yeah, absolutely. He made a play to the backhand side when I was out in center field on the camera there, and came up and threw it just a dart right into the first baseman's chest. And he just kind of looked at me and smiled. And I tried to big league him a little bit, but I saw the smile, and it just made me start laughing, man. I was like, oh, Jeff, you're killing me, man.
Yeah, he's a really good kid.
Yeah, he's an outstanding kid. And shout out to Mama Chef too, because she was awesome out there too. But Hank, a guy that that really impressed Shooter Hunt, who was there at the workout, Bryce Kurihara, the outfielder, impressed all of us after we kind of had an opportunity to dive into him during the games. Didn't say a whole lot, but man, did his actions speak very loudly.
Dude, this kid is Merrick Lee Jr. Now that I'm thinking about it, like seriously, they're both switch hitters. Bryce is left-handed thrower, but they have a lot of similarities in a sense to where they're kind of like that leadoff type kid who'll start the game off with 8 pitches, draw a walk, right? But I think with Bryce, he's got a little higher ceiling in terms of like his power potential. Like, I mean, his swings from both sides were pretty. In that workout, I mean, you saw the shooter video. It's nice and easy. It's control. It's like a controlled violence type swing. And then, I mean, the arm, it's 84 from the outfield. So I think that's got a shot to get even higher, towards the end of the year. And then I even saw him hop on the mound, and I talked to Vinny about it, and he was throwing strikes. It was, I think he went 3 innings or whatever, but
yeah,
he's the type of kid to where he can only get better. And like, I know how hard he works off the field too. And, he's one of those kids. Oh, he actually plays with Trey Chase, who is a future gamer for us. So they're going to be like the 1-2 little dynamic at that school. But yeah, I mean, really impressed with Bryce. He's got a lot to look forward to in his future. And so Hardy, I'm going to throw it over to you. Another guy I think you were high on was Jason Taylor from Notre Dame.
Yeah, Jason's very similar to the last kid I talked about, Wyatt Richardson, where he's a two-way guy. He's pretty good on both sides. Like, it's a very athletic profile, like another 6'9", 7'0" range runner. I think he might run a 7'08" out there. It's upper 80s from the outfield. It's a really nice compact swing. The hands work. He's still kind of figuring out who he is at the plate. He can really go get it in center field, just like Wyatt. He almost made a spectacular catch on the opening night where he was kind of shifted over into the left center field gap. Right-handed hitter hit a deep drive to right center field, and he took off like a dart and laid out full extension, and he might have missed it by that much. And the thing I loved about it is he popped up, and he was so mad because he thought he should have made the play. But when we talked about Wyatt, we talked about the bat being the separator and what he's going to turn into. I think for Jason, the separator for him is how good he is on the mound. It was mid 80s, comfortably, like there's not a lot of effort to get there. It's silky smooth down the mound. The arm speed is easy, and it's borderline fast for his size. He's got a better feel to spin the breaking ball than Richardson did, and I think that's why I like him a little more on the mound long term, because he spun some really good breaking balls. He really attacked the strike zone. It was, I think, 4 Ks. He only threw 2 innings, and he punched out either 3 or 4 guys in those 2 innings, 2 of them looking on a breaking ball that just dove back into the zone. He's kind of like you said about Gamrad. He's got a little FU when he gets on the mound. Like, he's got some swagger to himself. I'm not saying he's going to wind up this kid, but I'm going to comp him to another very famous Notre Dame pitcher in Hunter Green. Like, there's a little bit of similarity there to the delivery, the athleticism, the arm speed. Obviously, he's got a long way to go to get to be what Hunter is and what he was in high school. But Jason's got such a high ceiling for himself. I think eventually he's going to have to pick one side or the other so that he can reach that potential. But, man, if he winds up on the mound, he's got a chance to be really special. I had multiple scouts reach out to me and ask me about him, wanting him on their scout teams going forward. Nonetheless, this kid I really like. I love his high school coach. He's a great dude, and I think it's in an area that I don't sometimes doesn't get the love that maybe some other areas do, but that's Trevor Newman out of Rancho Cucamonga.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Newman in all of the games that we had him there at PK Park, 6'3", 183. The thing that really impressed me was, again, I keep going back to this athleticism with all these guys that I've talked about. Like a lot of athletes, man, ran a 7.10, laser time 60, was 85 from the outfield. BP was loud up to 94, 95 on the exit velos. He had a couple of hits in the games that we had him there at PK Park. And, it's not, how do we say this? It's not the most graceful looking swing, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But
right.
Man, it does damage, right? And he's able to get there, kind of a high leg kick, kind of slows things down, but he gets the barrel to the ball pretty consistently and pretty easily. And when he does, man, he uses every bit of that 6'3", 183 frame to drive baseballs. He favors the pull side, obviously, right now, I think. But he showed that he can go the other way with the ball that he hit into the that split the right center field gap for a double. He was under 11 seconds home to second base. Just a really impressive athlete, right, who I think still has some projection left to that 6'3", 183 frame. It's easy to see this guy being 6'5", about 195 by the time it's all said and done. The outfield ability, takes really good routes to balls. He breaks off the bat pretty easily, and instinctively, and he gathers everything out front, and he's just got a cannon for an arm, man. And it's just a really intriguing profile when you kind of add it all up, that I think is going to, continue to get better and better there for Newman. And again, you touched on it. It's an area that doesn't get a lot of love, but he's one of the better players there in that area. And Vinnie, over to you with the guy, Archer Moeller, the right-handed pitcher, third baseman. I think that, again, like all of these guys had a really good weekend, but Moeller in particular was one of the easy standouts, I think, for all of us, all four of us collectively, as we kind of debrief there on Sunday night.
Yeah, Archer put together a really good weekend. Started with the workout, had an EV in the low to mid 90s, showed off some power a little bit to the pull side, and I think that carried over in the game. I believe he had a ground rule double in front of you guys at PK Park. But in live game setting, I really liked him on the mound. He was 80 to 81, but it was all strikes. Could work both sides of the plate, was able to spin the curveball 68 to 70 miles an hour, and I believed he picked up 2 strikeouts with that pitch. Had command of the changeup, so really a strong 3-pitch mix. And he's a guy that's just a strike thrower, and I think any program could use those. And it's a big, strong build for him. He's 200 plus pound kid, but I'm intrigued to see kind of how the body develops for him over the next 2 years. But all indications show that he's progressing in the right direction on both sides of the ball. And I think for him, there's some real future there on the mound.
Yeah, absolutely. And another guy with a real future on the mound, I think, Hank, Mark Douglas, the right-handed pitcher, third baseman. You noted here that he made some big leaps over the summer, and it really, really showed there at the Super Sophomore games.
Yeah, we saw him. I think we saw him at an ID like 2 months ago, maybe. And, he's got some size on him, about 6'1", but he hopped on the mound, and we're looking at his stuff, and we're like, he's topping out 77, 78. So I'm like, all right, maybe he was tired or whatever the case may be. But he's comes this weekend, and he's, 81, 83, topping out 84. He got stronger from the last time I seen him. And then he actually was putting up really good at bats in the plate. I think he got a base hit or two to the right side, but like you said, I think his future's on the mound. He's got pretty good fastball. The breaking ball I'd say is the best secondary. The changeup needs some work a little bit, but like I said, he's only, 15, 16 years old. And, he goes to a pretty prestigious school in Santa Rosa, Cardinal Newman. So it's not like he's in bad hands or anything. And so I think with just his projection and his ability to throw strikes, fill the zone up, You know, I wouldn't be surprised if you hear him kind of like going that Janicelli route, you know, out there. You're like, oh, who's this kid from Cardinal Newman? You're like, oh, that's Douglas. You know, it's good.
He's good. Yeah, we like him.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Douglas.
Yeah, he was good. He was good for sure. Now you got Hardy rolling.
I love when Hank goes, yeah, he's pretty good.
I have this thing. It's like, you guys see it too. You go to a game, you're hyping the kid up. You go there, it's like nothing. Film all this, nothing, right? So I try to underplay it as much as I can now.
Yeah. You know, a guy, Hardy, that certainly opened my eyes and I think caught all of our attention. Mason Ritchie, the outfielder. You know, it's we talk about this all the time, right? They're the showcase warriors and then the ball players, right? And and this guy maybe in a showcase setting is just you see him and you're like, yeah, he's okay, like Hank would say, right? But you know, you get this guy in a 3-game set like we saw him, and you're just like, all right, those tools can really play.
I'm going to steal a Hank line here, and he is a Valley sleeper, so we are going to include Bakersfield in the Valley this time. But Mason came out to the Bakersfield Summer ID at the end of the summer and was, you said it, he was good. Like he was good enough that I'm like, hey, Mace, I would love to have you come up to this event. You know, if it works in your schedule and you can get up there. And so when he signed up, I'm like, all right, good. I want to see, you know, I liked it there. How does it look matching up against other really good 2028s from our state, from other states? And then what is it in the game? And man, Mace, like, if you're watching this, you really, really impressed, like very much like Quintero did earlier in this, where I'm like, oh, you're better than I realized. Like, I liked you there and I thought you were pretty good, but you're even better than I realized. And that's what Mason did. His first at bat was his only bad one of the weekend. And I hate to say bad one because it was a deep count strikeout. But after that, it was nothing but barrel. It was nothing but hits. And they weren't cheapies. We're not talking the seeing eye single. We're not talking the flare that lands in front of the outfielder. It was line drive to center field, line drive to right center field for a double, line drive to left center field, on the barrel, hard one hopper through the infield. Just that innate feel to hit. And again, you're not facing 68 to 72. You're facing the better arms of your grad class, and you're putting up really good at bats against those guys. I do think he's probably more of a center field, right field guy. You know, I don't think he's going to come and play on the infield dirt, but he's a sound defender out there. He does a good job out there, but the kid can really hit. And I think he's going to open some eyes out in Bakersfield this spring. He's at Garces Memorial with another one of our favorite guys. He was actually an Oregon commit, so he's going to get some attention, and I think he's going to do really well with it. Man, Les, you're picking guys that I absolutely love, and this is another one. And Julian Suarez, you know, compact right-handed hitting catcher who can really hit.
Yeah, another catcher, right? I mean, lo and behold, another standout catcher from California that was just lights out. And, you know, Julian is a guy we're really familiar with, been to a number of different events. And, you know, the thing that really impresses me every time we see him, Hardy, is that he just continues to hit. And he hits and he hits some more. The defense and the catch and throw have always been really solid, 199 to 206. You know, he had a 76-mile-an-hour top exit velo during BP. It seems like he got over that during the game pretty consistently with a couple of barrels to right field. The 76-mile-an-hour catcher velo with a 97 exit velo, you know, which I think, again, he got to pretty consistently in the games. You know, a lot of barrels out of him all weekend. Just one of the, you know, nicest kids you're going to meet too, right? Very, like a lot of these other kids we talked about, very appreciative of the opportunity, and he maximized that opportunity as well with, you know, solid play behind the plate. You know, it's not easy when you're catching guys that you don't know, you're unfamiliar with. He handled that very easily, threw out a guy at second base, you know, tried to back pick over at first that, you know, obviously guy was safe, but just it's that instinctiveness and that headiness that, you know, really shows that he's able to play the game at a high level. he's locked in from the second he gets the gear on. And he's a guy that, again, we've seen a number of different times and just continues to impress, and pretty physical for a smaller guy, 5'7". There's strength throughout that frame, and I think that's one of the things that really impressed me is just how strong he is. And he's got that frame that's going to really make it behind the plate for him. Hey, what do you know, Vinny? Another catcher, and this guy, I think, was arguably at the top of the list when it comes to, hitting from a catcher standpoint, and that's Griffin Arnold. He also played third base for us this weekend.
Yeah, Griffin had a really good weekend, and it started in workout where, Shooter took a real liking to him. And it's just because the left-handed swing is just really smooth. Low to mid 90s EV, but it's just line drive after line drive. It's very balanced, under control. And then in the last game over at Bushnell on Sunday, he put together 3 really good at bats. 2 of them were line drives, and I believe the second one, we didn't have exit velocities on TrackMan, but I think it was the hardest hit ball of the weekend at Bushnell. Just smoked a line drive to right, and that's just kind of what he did all weekend. It's just square up the baseball, take really good at bats, and defensively, it's very defensively sound behind the plate, catch and throw, accurate to the bag. But just because of the body, he's 6'1", 170 pounds, that I think is going to really fill out. I really like him as a third baseman too. I just think the athleticism and the profile really fit to third base. But regardless of where he is long term, the bat is going to play, and you really got to see a good look at that over the weekend in workout, translating into live game. And then, going over to you, Hank was, probably my favorite pitcher of the weekend, and that's the big righty, �12𝕕𝕤.
Yeah, he's teammates with DJ Gonzalez, so that's the battery for their high school. But I agree, Vin. I think 𝕤𝕤's got a shot to throw, 95 plus someday.
100%. Yeah.
Just because his frame, he's athletic. It's not like he doesn't move fast. He moves well down the mound, but he kind of reminds me a little bit of like 𝐿𝕐𝕐𝕕 for the Yankees back in the day. Just gets it, like he's going 3-4s, and then I saw the video you posted. He had a sword in there, so I'm like, dude's got 3 pitches, and it's like he pitches with the conviction where you want, it's like, hey, this dude's a starter. I want him going 7-8 innings of my first game. But yeah, I think he's another kid out of the Valley. It's got a shot to be, I think, one of those better arms you hear about. But yeah, I mean, 𝕤𝕤, he's a really good competitor. That's what I respect about him. And I see that's a trend with all these athletes just in the whole state, really, is just the competitiveness that they bring out from each other. So I think that was a big thing of what got these kids out of their little bubble, in a sense.
I think the theme so far is the Valley is loaded.
Yes,
right?
sir.
I mean, the Valley is loaded. And I know personally, we just from our conversations, like I know that we're all pretty excited to get up into the Valley this spring, and obviously next summer with some events. But I mean, the Valley has got a ton of talent, and I think it's about time that somebody starts shedding some light on that for those kids, because I mean they're really good up in that area. And Hardy, for you, last guy, a guy that I mentioned to you, the physicality that he showed up with is just really impressive. And I don't know if you were standing by me when I was talking to him after the last game, but the changes this guy has made to his swing are starting to really, really show some really positive results. And that's Leo Knapp Schwarzenegger out of Loyola High School.
Yeah, Leo was, he JFG kid a year ago for us. It was kind of a stiffer operation back then. And then I didn't get to see his BP, but I saw his first couple at bats. And I think, Les, you and I almost simultaneously looked at each other and were like, that looks so much better. Like, that looks so much more athletic. That looks so much easier. And then watching him catch and throw. It's like, he's on here. Not that he had a bad weekend. He didn't light it up. I think he had a hit or two. He had some good at bats. But when we talk about kids getting better, and it doesn't have to be picture perfect as a sophomore in high school, but you start to think about what can it be when he's a junior, what can it be when he's a senior, what can it be when he winds up in college. Leo's on this path where he might pass up some kids that were more prestigious than him at a younger age, just because he hadn't quite figured it out yet. Like, he hadn't gotten his strength, he hadn't gotten his athleticism yet. All of that stuff is starting to show up for him. And I wasn't standing there, but I heard you say that to him, and then he was walking by me, and I'm like, hey, Leo, ditto to what Les just told you. Like, absolutely, you are doing a great job. You are on the right track. He just smiles and says, thank you, coach. Like, I'm excited. And I was like, dude, I'm excited for you too. You're going in a really good direction. So I think Leo's going to, it might not be this year. It might be another year away, but he's going to make some noise in that Mission League for Loyola. And our last one here, as we kind of wrap up all the kids we're talking about, and this was a kid that, Hank, I think you said it earlier about Ryder Miller. This kid's got personality on him. He has got a personality. He's fun. He's engaging. That's Cash Wilkin, the right-hander who is now transferred over to Calabasas.
Yeah, I was really impressed with him at the Central Cal Summer ID, where he, played defense over on the left side, but then got on the mound and was pretty good in that bullpen session, earned an invitation to this event, and he did not disappoint. Up to 86 with the fastball, over 2,400 on the spin. The curveball was good. It's sharp. It shows some late bite to it.
Yeah.
68 to 72. Then he threw in a slider for good measure just to kind of keep hitters off balance. But it's a really clean operation on the mound. It's pretty athletic down the mound. He also hit in game, played a little on the left side. I think, personally, I think that the future is on the mound for him. It's a bigger frame already, hovering around that 6', 6'1" mark with some projection to it, given that it's, pretty light in terms of weight. But Cash Wilkin, I mean, this is now the second time he's impressed on the mound. I think I think you said it, Hardy. He's got a chance to, maybe get some innings over at Calabasas this spring, which, obviously that league's no joke. And if he does well there, it's just going to kind of, continue that trajectory upwards for him. But it was really impressive. What really impressed me about his outing was, he gave up a hit, and then you can really see him bear down after that. It was like, okay,
yeah,
that's it. I'm done fooling around. Probably use some more colorful language. He was done with giving up these hits and really came back and attacked hitters. And I think that competitiveness, Hank, you touched on it earlier. That competitiveness is what really stood out with a lot of guys at this event. And I think when you get these kids into that setting where it's like, look, I'm from California playing against guys from Hawaii, Arizona, Nevada, all these other states. It's like, dude, I want to show that I'm the best, right? And that California is the best. And, I think that was one of the really cool things we saw was just the competitiveness with all of these guys. Hey, we're representing not only ourselves, but our state.
Yeah, very much. I think you did see that come out, especially throughout the recruiting process. That's something you'll hear coaches talk about is like, I want to see how a kid competes. I want to see how they do when they fail. Does that kind of pack it in the tent and they can't have a good day? Or how do they compete when things aren't going well? And we saw that from some of these guys. Like, they had a bad at bat. And in an event like this, you're going to sit around for a while because the lineups are a little longer. There's more kids in it. That ability to get over that at bat and get back up there and do something well or give up a hit, compete. I think I'm going to go back to Russ. Russ didn't have his best outing. Not that he was bad, but he didn't have his best outing early. And then all of a sudden it was like he threw a slider and a kid swung and missed at it. And this light bulb went on for him like, oh, that thing. All right, here you go. Here's another one. Kid swung and missed it again. Oh, here's another one. Swung and missed it again. I think you told him, like, Russ, that slider's pretty nasty. He just kind of smiled, and he's like, yeah, it is.
Yeah. He looked at me. He's like, it was filthy today. And I'm like, dude, way to find it, though, and go to it, though, right? Like, for a young player, that's pretty impressive.
I just love that we run gameplay, because, like, as an evaluator and all that, like, showcases are great, but that's where you really see the player is in the gameplay portion for me is, like you said, how he acts. Like, I don't care that you went 0 for 3 Ks. Like, did you go out there and try to play defense for 7 innings? Like,
Yep.
Just the little stuff, running on and off. Like, they may not realize it, but it's like you can see the ones that actually care about the little things. It goes a long way. And, I love seeing just the little details of these kids, and they actually like care about it. So I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing, just real quick for me, is I think for some of those kids that got up there that were real nervous, they'd never been in a setting like that before. And then they go out and they have some success and they realize, like, okay, maybe I'm not at the level of these other guys quite yet with my tools or my fastball velocity or whatever it is, but I can compete with them. And if I just keep
Right.
getting better, I'm going to be right there with them. Like, I think of a kid like Luca Alvarado, who's down here from me. It's not a ton of stuff yet, but he throws a ton of strikes, and he walked out. He was so nervous coming
competed.
into it. Yeah, and I texted Vinny. I was like, "How did it go?" He told me, he's like, "Hey, he competed. He threw strikes. He didn't have the breaking ball today, but he went after kids." And I texted Luca after that. I was like, "Hey, man, good job." Vinny said it went well. He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Now I just need to get my fastball velocity up so that I can be just like all those other guys. But I know that I can get them out now with what I have."
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and that goes to that point we said at the top of the podcast of being able to compete with guys from other states, right? Compare apples to apples versus you look at a ranking or you see a video, right? We've talked about this a lot where guys aren't posting their ground outs, right? Guys aren't
Right.
posting their full pitch walks, right? So being able to see that and compare yourself to that, I think is incredibly helpful. But guys, any final thoughts on the Super Sophomore games?
Can't wait for next year.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good one.
I think this was better than any of us realized it was going to be. It was absolutely awesome.
Yeah. 2029s are on the clock. Well, with that, we will we thank you guys for watching, listening, and we will see you guys at the yard.